Probably a bit more cash in my back pocket, meaning, there was lots of partying, there was lots of enjoyment, but I had a goal. I want to own a home. By the age of 21, I purchased my first house, and then by the age of 23, I sold that, and I bought the property from my uncle. And so by the age of 26, I was literally mortgage free. I really thank God my wife made a big decision. To follow and to come with and to support. We were only 3 months married. She comes out of 5 sisters, 1 brother, so quite a tight family. Whereas I grew up a little bit more disconnected. She was tight. So the first few years was quite challenging. I always grew up with a healthy work ethic because that's what my father, learning to serve, was something that was a big part of my growing up. I think that still serves me well today, knowing that, what we're doing is worthwhile. Also doing it well is vital. When you're in South Africa, you've got to outperform and outservice nevertheless. So it's just one of those things. I don't know about you, Anthony, but what I found is that there's always some level of resistance. Whether we meet people or an opportunity, there's always a resistance, right? And that resistance can be from experience or whatever we're going through, or whatever. How do we overcome that? Progress is a big word because sometimes it doesn't feel like. Wisdom comes through the ability to evaluate. It's what we are evaluating, who we are evaluating it from. Hey, hold on. This might just be the time now where I've got to widen that circle. Like you say, maybe I've got to chip away more at that crust.
Welcome to the Champion Mindset Collective podcast, where we speak with inspiring leaders who've turned challenge into change and passion into purpose. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce Jerome Jacobs, author, the Business Mechanics book, business growth strategist, founder of the Rise Advisory, coach, dad, husband, and all-round adventurer. From fixing cars in South Africa to helping over 350 businesses across New Zealand grow and thrive, Jerome brings real-world wisdom and a heart to everything he does. He's here to share not just business insights, but his journey of mindset shifts and how he balances success, family, faith, and fitness. Let's welcome Jerome Jacobs to the Champion Mindset Collective podcast.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, thanks so kind.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate being here today.
It's good to have you here.
Anthony, it's a genuine privilege, to be honest with you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And this is the book that you wrote?
Yeah, so I was put at a challenge just after 2010 when I left a coaching franchise from 2003. So I was 7 years part of this franchise. And, when you lay at night and you got these things just running in your head, and all the right people just came around. And because coming out of the motor trade, I thought of business as a vehicle, to be honest with you. And I could easily distinguish, and I knew that you could connect with folks, in that it's something really straightforward. Who doesn't know a car? Who hasn't sat in a car? Who wasn't a passenger? Who knows? Oh, crap! The thing is running on empty. When you're going slow, fast, there's so many analogies, from a point of view. And so I've had some really good people to sit down and help me put the book together. And so it's got some really interesting chapters in it. It starts off with this thing called the roadmap. So it identifies where you're going with this vehicle. It also identifies the situation, whether this vehicle has got a brand, like, is that a Toyota? Is that a Porsche? It sort of identifies something, and that's what a brand does in a way. And then it moves to the second chapter, because when you buy a great vehicle, it should come with a owner's manual.
Absolutely, yeah.
And
this one doesn't.
Work in progress. It's like, okay, 2.0. So we, it sort of clearly defines what does that look like, from a systems in an organization. And then you move around the wheels. The wheels demonstrate the marketing and the sales. If they ain't turning, the vehicle ain't going anywhere. What's the point? So
absolutely,
people can relate to that. And then the next chapter, it's around, of course, we all hear about the people on the bus. Unique capability people, recognizing, the different personalities, skill sets, and all that capability stuff, and recognizing where they're at in the journey from my point of view. And then the last but not least, I think it's actually the most valuable chapter in the book is called the service crew.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Got to have that service crew, having the right accountants, the right mentors, the right coaches, the right consultants, the right HR, health and safety. I mean, like, where does the list stop? You know what I mean? So I found that people that know where they're going to the business, they have a great support crew. And look, some people own as a man in a van. Some people own like a hiace, with a good few people, good few people in it. Some people own multiple vehicles. Some people own a plane, a train, a boat. So people can relate to that. And so different locations. And so it's quite simple, and it's been designed in a way. The book's designed, it's easy to read because coming out of a trade background, mechanical background, I was like, oh, if someone was going to read it. So it's clear and it's easy to understand and to follow. So there's most of the folks that I work with, they pick it up and go, I hate reading books, and go, oh, this is easy. I read it on my way here. Or so I've got a couple of people say, I got the book and I've never ever read it. I'm like, that's fine.
Yeah, you read it when the time comes. Yeah.
We're humans, right?
And so where can people find the book?
You can get it on Amazon. You can get it on, just Google it, and it's on a few different platforms, and it's also in a few other formats. So you can Kindle and stuff. So
so the book's called Business Mechanics, and can you fix it? And as Bob the Builder would say, yes, you can.
If man made it, I'm sure we can fix it.
Absolutely, exactly.
I love it. Yeah. Thanks for asking.
No problem. Well, Jerome, before we go into some in-depth questions, I'd love for you to share your journey in life from childhood, living in South Africa to coming to New Zealand. Share with us in a summary what your life has been like. Yeah.
By all means. On my mom's side, I'm the eldest grandson and grandchild. My dad's side, I'm the eldest grandson. There are some ladies and girls that clipped a little bit earlier. And so, there's always been an element for me, that sense of responsibility and, from my point of view. But mom and dad is still very much around, married, and I've got a sister. She's 2 years younger than what I am. And then we got a brother he's basically 15, 16 years, sort of came way after. As a family, we grew up never lacking anything, but also moved around a lot. And so there was, growing up was quite challenging in that sense, in the sense of certainty, you always moved around. So it was just how things were. Dad picked up the enjoyment around that, being a mechanic. I picked it up from him. And so that's what led me down that particular pathway. I did not finish high school. I went back, what they call Standard 9, matric is year 13. I went back and I realized first, just call it. But what was interesting was when I made the choice or the decision to do my, what they call NTC1, NTC2, NTC3, and for technical college for doing being a mechanic, I aced that all the way through. I did it all in 1 year. And our parents couldn't even believe it. They were like, this can't be happening. And I think I just knew that was what I needed to do. I always grew up with a healthy work ethic because that's what my father, learning to serve, was something that was a big part of my growing up. I think that still serves me well today, knowing that, what we're doing is worthwhile and also doing it well is vital. When you're in South Africa, you've got to outperform and outservice nevertheless. So it's just one of those things. There's someone just on your heels. When I got qualified, which I put myself through, my qualification, I put myself through. I was working on weekends, doing work and stuff. So I had to learn very early on the value of money and the value of saving because it wasn't much of that around. When you've got pocket money and things like that. So on the weekends, you would do things, wash auntie's cars, uncle's cars. You do things in order to get some cash. But I was given an opportunity very early on to do some unique things. So having an entrepreneurial mindset has always been there. So for example, I used to buy, repair and sell vehicles. And that was one way I was generating income. That led me to buying some people movers, like your shuttles that you have from here to the airport. I bought 2 of those, and then they became another income stream. Once I got qualified, I only worked about 4 months for a dealership, and I was like, this is not for me. And then that's when I opened up my own workshop, mechanical workshop. So probably a bit more cash in my back pocket, meaning, there was lots of partying, there was lots of enjoyment, but I had a goal. I wanted to own a home. And so by the age of 21, I purchased my first house. And then by the age of 23, 23, I sold that and I bought a property from my uncle. And so by the age of 26, I was literally mortgage free.
Wow.
And so, 4-bedroom house, oak kitchen, saltwater chlorinated pool, 4-car garage. It was amongst friends, people were like, what are you on about? But I knew, the importance of a goal and the importance of working hard and the importance of, let's not make the banks wealthy, let's, and so it's because I think we came from growing up with very little.
Yeah.
And so the importance of that. And so it led me to meeting my lovely wife. And we dated, we courted, and where I worked, it's an interesting story. Where I worked, there was 2 brothers, and they came over, and they came to come see New Zealand. So I didn't know the seeds were being planted. So while I was working with them, I see the videos because they came over and everything. I was like, what's this New Zealand? Like I couldn't connect. It's a young guy. It's all about, just the now. There came a time where, when you've got to close 27 windows at night, and there was just a bunch of things that didn't sit right with me. I was uncomfortable, even though, you're mortgage free. Something made me want to come over and have a look-see.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I did. And it was almost, you were talking earlier about flow. Like the flow, like someone gave me some details of somebody, and then I landed up in Australia and met a cousin I didn't know. And the next thing, the same person that they wrote on there, it was a cousin of theirs, it's just all crazy, the whole of Australia and those kind of things. When I came over here, that time he still faxed back a job offer, came back 3 months, got married. I had my permanent residency and came back in 99. So everything just landed, and I think
it flowed,
sort of ordained, to say. And so, I really thank God. My wife made a big decision to follow and to come with and to support. We were only 3 months married. She comes out of 5 sisters, 1 brother, so quite a tight family. Whereas I grew up a little bit more disconnected. She was tight, so the first few years was quite challenging for her. You put me in the desert, I want to make something happen. Kind of mindset.
Wow. You bought your house at 21, mortgage free by 23.
26.
26, sorry.
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're an action man.
Put my mind to something. Pretty much I know that I'm on that particular path. And everything comes into alignment. Excuse me, I'm using the book, just again, car, you'll find me using this.
If your wheels aren't aligned, then you're going to go wibbly wobbly everywhere.
Get the judders.
Yeah. And like you said, like flow, if your wheels aren't aligned on your spirit and you're not flowing with it, then you may end up in a different direction. Your GPS might tell you to go here, but you might end up somewhere else. And it's being aware of where the universe, God is wanting to take you.
100%.
But it's also being open and available and ready to go where you need to go, right?
Yeah, that's and there's some really interesting stuff to talk about that, because I think from a faith point of view, my lifestyle and the way I was living, because from that was literally in the fast lane, and I needed to be put into a different environment, and I think that was just part of that ordained. Look, let me take you out over here, so that you're disconnected from, because environment is an interesting thing. We can either impact an environment or it can impact us.
Yeah, well, I believe that like God universe puts us, sometimes take us out of and separates us because we're meant to focus on something and go down that track. So we often feel like we're being pushed away from something. People are walking away from us, but it's actually by design that we're meant to go on that track, and through that there's a whole lot of growth and expansion and stuff that comes.
Yeah, it's like, wow, okay, this is interesting. It's the whole concept of the road to life. You're on the road, and you start to get a little judders, the little cat's eye, and ignore that, and and then you get the arm core. It makes a little bit more of a mess. But I've experienced a few Mack trucks. And it's just they're not listening.
Yeah, exactly. But like our GPS tells us to go a certain way because it knows that there's something happening and down a different route, right? But often we don't want to Like the other day, I know where I was going, but the GPS was taking me a different way. And I'm like, no, I want to go this way. I want to go right.
So real.
Yeah, but it's like then you go that way and then you go, oh no, there's like a traffic jam or there's a accident or something, right?
Bottleneck.
So it's really we've got to follow our intuition and we've got to follow the voice, the direction, the guidance that we're being given by the God and universe as to where we could be going, or where we. I don't want to use the word should, but I want to say where we're meant to be going, right? So yeah. So you went from an auto tech to a top coach. What mindset shifts made that possible?
In 2001, I left a job and I went to a partnership in a mobile mechanical business, and I very quickly knew that I didn't have all the skill sets, from my point of view, because how you do business in South Africa is a bit different, and in Dwayne, I knew that there was something different, and there was fortunate enough, I've managed to get a good coach on board, and part of that coaching organization, they have one major rule. And this rule up to date I still utilize. I still share. And by sharing it, I always get reminded about it. We adopted it at home, as a family. And the rule is called above the line. And above the line, there are three fundamental things: ownership, and not in the sense like we think about ownership, but like what real ownership looks like in a way. And so, and then of course there's accountability and responsibility. And I'm aware of other, the below the line, which is the blame, excuse, and the denial of all of things that's occurring, and just, putting the head under the mat. So I would say that is probably the biggest shift, because at that stage, when I went into that and sharing that from a point of view, even my kids, they had on their walls above the line and the world is round, and, all these fundamental philosophies, but things that really is fundamental to how we live. And so they didn't have pictures of rock stars, you know what I mean? It was, and so I adopted, and by congruency, I'd get very uncomfortable sharing, and it's not in that space. So congruency became quite a big thing for me in this walk, from a point of view. I would be genuine with someone, say, I don't know this part, but let's work on together to find out, or get the support in this from a coaching point of view, especially moving from running mechanical business to becoming, it's literally, I flew over it for training in Australia. And I remember flying over, I wrote on there, motor mechanic. And then when I flew back, I was, wait, hold on. Business coach. It's like, so it's just literally flew and identity. And I remember I was, the first few nights back, I was literally sweating. I was like, who's this person, and so, that was an identity shift. And it was taking ownership for that identity shift, which was, that was a crazy mindset shift.
It is like, I've been through that recently as well.
Yeah.
And, like 20, 30 years in corporate world, always an employee, and then shifting into CEO, founder of my own organization, business or agency. And it's like, it took me a while to go, hang on, I'm no longer an employee. I'm actually the founder of my organization. It's not until you make that identity shift that everything changes for you, right? And becoming congruent, and I totally agree. And would you explain to our audience what congruency is and what the importance of it is? Yeah.
It's when we're talking about something that really matters or it's important, and being in alignment with that. So if we're asking someone, so hypothetically, a simple example, hey, you're doing newsletters, is that something that I'm doing and am I doing it well? If I'm going to ask someone, hey, listen, what's your fitness? Am I doing something to maintain my fitness? If I'm saying someone, and it's a true alignment of servitude attitude, is being able to go, this is something that that I can speak about because I've trialed it, I've experienced it, and experience is actually a critical element to it, and especially early phase and mid phase, and then you become more a matured coach. But the point behind that is congruency as being true to oneself when one and you can sense. People can sense it. They can go, this guy's sharing this, but I don't know whether he believes what he's saying over here,
Exactly.
or where it's coming from.
Yeah.
And for me, those are genuine, uncomfortable moments, and so that means I have some more learning, some more growth.
It's almost like an actor, reading a script and memorizing a script, and then just acting, to actually an actor being that person and truly believing that they're in that. Like someone like Jim Carrey, who did that. I can't remember. Was it the Truman show? And then he did another one, but he literally took on. He literally lived that person's life.
Persona, wow.
And he became that person. Even when he finished the movie and then moved on, he lost himself.
Wow.
Right? But he was so congruent to that character.
That character.
Yeah. So really aligning with your true self. Yeah. Who you are truly within yourself. And there's a modality in the coaching where we use called the core, crud, and crust.
Okay.
And so when you're born, you're at your purest form, which is your core. Then what happens, and if you can imagine, so the 3 circles, small circle, bigger circle, and then a middle circle and a bigger circle. So core, the crud, is where things start happening in our life, trauma and so on, and we start getting a whole lot of crud. And then the crust is kind of like the things that we hide. So if you think about a mirror or a window that over time gets smudged, or you've got a messy room, and
So like the lenses,
and then you close the door and you cover up the window because you don't want people to see that you've got these things behind there. So you build up this crust, which is also known as the imposter syndrome, because you're no longer your true self. You're actually being an imposter, right? It's not until you start chipping away at the crust or start taking the paper off the window and cleaning the window that you can actually see your true self in there.
There's that takes something.
Yeah.
It takes something. And being real, one of the things about being real, for example, I went into a development and that didn't pan out, and working out through that and sharing that with people, because it's a significant amount of loss and a significant amount of challenge, and you got to deal with that on a whole bunch of levels, from a family level, from a business partnership level, from a banking level, from a all of that as at play. And again, some people, like that's an identity, but here's the reality is, for me, is there hasn't been someone that hasn't experienced something like that, taken an element of risk, or they've, no matter how calculated or time framed. And so, I've experienced all sorts of things, from purchasing, whether it's property and working through dynamics around that, or whether it's been in business shareholding, or whether it's in, selling shares. So when you start looking at the realm of all of those experiences, good, bad, or indifferent, got more to connect and more to be congruent with when business owners are going through different levels of organic or acquisition growth or merge situation.
Absolutely.
So,
how did you begin to see yourself as more than just the trade?
are you talking about earlier?
Yeah, like your trade as a mechanic.
Like I invested quite a bit in education. So there was a phase, I never grew up reading many books. So give you some context. Once I got on some coaching and I was exposed to self-improvement, I started doing a lot of courses. I remember, and there was a defining moment for me, actually. We talk about those defining moments. I remember I did this landmark course, and I had a picture. I had a picture of the real impact of what business owners, when it goes sideways, or when it hits the wall, or when it's a crash, the real impact was their families, right? And then you're moving into their people, then you're moving to the suppliers, the contractors, then you're moving to the banks, and so I saw the impact of whether it's a partnership or it's a sole trader, I saw the impact, the hurt, the challenge, and it took me back to a time where, because my father had businesses, and I grew up in quite a challenging family, and it was a time of alcohol and that kind of challenges with my dad and stuff. So I've seen things build up, but I've also seen everything, and it took me back to a place, and then it became crystal clear on what the purpose is. How can I get myself to a place, sort of that ultimate supporter, but how do I get to a place where I support business owners so that it's not a matter of failing, it's a matter of how we can progress and succeed. But now the beauty of that is the impact that has on them, their families, the economic empowerment, the value that they have when they can, currently, we got people that are hiring in this season, and so just seeing that happen. And so it creates value, certainty, it creates a sense of contribution, it creates a sense of variety and stuff, within these organizations and businesses, just because of, one or two very unique people that have made a commitment, around the ownership, and around accountability and responsibility to take this thing called a business vehicle forward, and continue to make it go forward, and so I had that defining moment, and that became a big part of my purpose. So what it was, it was like I was holding onto a rope, like literally that's what it felt like. I was holding onto this rope, and there was all of these people hanging on it, and I'm standing over there. Are you gonna let go, Jerome? And that's it was easy then to make the shift going, that's who I was. The other key thing is, at the end of the day, is I can count on my hands how many callbacks I would have had on mechanicals, because I was the kind of guy, measure twice, cut once. I would always, for me, it's about keeping people safe on the road. So I see vehicles very differently versus like, this is a thing to get me from A to B. I go, how can I get safely from A to B? So when I do something, I would double check, because it not only make a mess with it makes a mess. And so all of those kind of things were coming through to me. And I was like, oh, wow. Oh, so now I'm in the people business versus in the mechanical, so it shifted, and when that dynamic shifted.
We can still apply those things, right, in a different context.
It's so real. And so, from reverse engineering, how I'm going to find that fault, what's the solution, the fault checks, the processes, you got to go through a sequential process when you want to take an engine apart, how you put it back together. There's all of that kind of stuff. It's no different in a way we assemble.
So systemizing, right?
Yeah.
And having a methodical way of doing it, yeah.
But people matter, and so that was the crazy shift. It was like, whoa.
Because you're not just dealing with cars, you're dealing with people's lives here.
It made me want to learn and understand more on how we are wired, the choices, the decisions we make. How did someone get to that part in their life? What made that decision, and how do you keep making those kind of decisions or choices in life? And so, like they say, you start asking better questions, and then you move down a different pathway. So it's quite impactful, because then we get to see generational opportunity.
So you talk about business as a tool for thriving families and communities. Why is it so important to you?
The main thing at the end of the day, what it does when you look at, I'll give you another concept in this space, right? So there's this thing called the loyalty ladder, and you start somewhere and you move up it, and there's more, and you become a customer and a member, and then you become an advocate, and then you become, so I always look at those kind of things in business, in a sense of people's database or the relationships, or internal, meaning internal of the company, or external of the company. And what I found is that business is nothing much more than a tight-knit community. It's either in working as a community or it's not. And so, but it's in a space. And in this space, I look at what's actually happening around that. My encouragement with working with business owners is like figuring out how a lot of the strategy and stuff is how we're going to impact and add value to the community. So one of my core things about who I am is it's about value add. So I'm always thinking about that from a concept at the end of the day. Look, organizations, they need to, they make money, they've got to have some aside to pay down loans, and they've got to reinvest. So, which is kind of cool, with the people process. But beyond that, what is that business actually there for? And I think one of the things that spoke to me very early on is physical intelligence, intellectual intelligence, emotional intelligence, and then spiritual intelligence. And what I found is that people get quicker, faster, better, not only when they can intellectually talk about stuff, but when they're genuinely emotionally involved. And this is on a greater level out of business. So so this brings in communities, it brings in families and how things ought to work. And it's all through this unique entity. And so we're starting to look at it, and whether it's in sponsorships or whether we're starting to look at it in a different perspective. And then people are connected to that business better, especially from a team point of view. I'll give you one simple thing I would normally do in a business. I would think about the employees or the contractors, and I would ask the business owner, for example, so what are the things they're involved in, so whether that's sports or whatever the situation, and then we'll get them to start thinking about how they can add value into those kind of things. It not only creates retention, but it creates a different environment, of success. And then we move beyond that. So working from the inside out. So when I think community in all of those ways. It really says something, and it's in the core of who I am. And then they start to get that because I'll share about how I'm involved in the community. So again, it's coming back into that congruence thing, and I can genuinely connect and share with that, over the years. And so that's why I'm always keen to see organizations and businesses involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And also thriving, right? Because
100%.
Yeah, because you want to support your family and your communities, absolutely. Yeah. How can business owners keep their why and front and center?
The whole Simon Sinek, the good.
Find your why.
Find your why.
What was the other one? Know your why?
Or know your why.
Yes.
So what I sense is, I use the word depends here in the situation because it depends a lot on where business owners are. In the fundamental, when I was trained as far as the action coach, we had a saying, a business is a commercial, profitable enterprise that works with or without you. The without you is optional. And so what does that mean? It's commercial. It's an enterprise. You can take it, it's got products and services. It works with or without you. It's profitable, and you have team and you have systems from that point of view. It's kind of from that point of view. So when I look at it and I ask people what their why is, it's not difficult for me to find out if it's legacy based, if it's financial freedom. Their why is actually to, wives need to be full-time at home to look after the kids, doesn't have to do 2 jobs in there, I can understand their why of why it is that they do this. It's in multi-layers though. It's never like, hey, this is the one thing. It's always 2 or 3 or 4 things that truly matter. Right? Here, everybody wants to get out of debt. Everybody wants to, perhaps not everybody wants to own a commercial property, own 5 businesses. Not everybody wants a general manager, or not everybody wants to, sell it, because they enjoy it. Their why might be, a business owner's why might be, I just want to get back on the tools. So for me, it's knowing that and then being able to circle it and bring it back as often as possible when we start to get the judders or the noise starts to clatter or the doubt kicks in or, things change. The supplier, a key team member leaves, a key customer, through another friend shifts on. There's a whole lot of things, but it's coming back to and going, hey, listen, we can do this. And this is the reason why. So I buy in very early on to that emotional context or goal of what it's there for.
Yeah.
Vital.
Awesome.
Vital.
You've helped hundreds of businesses. What mindset traits separate thriving owners from struggling ones?
the main one I would say is the concept around I know. I would say if I was to, because you don't have to say it to see it. I've found that in life. You could sit next to someone and you go, they probably think they know it all. And that's a dangerous mindset. I know. It comes at a great cost because we are ever molding, ever changing. There's, as you know, there's two sides to a coin.
Yeah.
There's many different ways to look at things, perspectives and things like that. So when I meet a business owner that are open, I really got a strong sense at the end of the day, we are going to get much more traction. We're going to go places because they'll give it a go.
Yeah.
And they'll give it a go again. Yeah. And they'll give it a go because they're open. I find that would be probably the number one challenging mindset versus giving it a go. And
so the key is don't be a know-it-all. Be open to learn from others, right?
From others. There's, as you quite know, it's the people you meet, the books you read, the things you watch, what you listen to. So it's really kind of cool, having unique people, but being open to it. And when someone says, tell me more, how else? What else? That spins my wheels. I'm like, gee, man, it really gets the blood flowing and the juice flowing, and we're not lack. One thing we don't do is lack ideas, but as long as you don't lack the openness to them.
Are there common thought patterns that hold people back?
Depends. Experiences that people might have had in the past, and that might, when that happened, that was then. I'm not saying that's now. But I would say there's a couple of things. The naysayers, probably the main thing at the end of the day is listening to maybe peers that don't want to see someone else succeed, and they might subtly say something. And so when I'm listening to people, they go, a bunch of them, this is what they're saying. That would probably be, for me, because I would believe that most people, to some level, are influenced, especially in communities or friendships or stuff like that. So there are a lot of good ideas. Sometimes I go, like today, I had someone call me and they had an idea. I'm like, that's an awesome idea. And that came through someone else. I'm like, I cherish that. And I'm going, man, that's brilliant. But when it comes from a point where you start to notice that there's consistency in a pattern occurring, then of what's being said or what's been taken on, I'm not saying the news is bad, but there's those aspects that you got to take. You still got to, I think people still got to exercise wisdom.
Yeah, and also surround yourself with people who are on the same sort of vision and people that have gone before you who have done what you're wanting to do. So it really depends on who you sort of surround yourself with, right? And who you take advice from as well. Yeah.
Progress is a big word because sometimes it doesn't feel like it, sometimes. So there's another saying that it really matters to me. Wisdom comes through the ability to evaluate. It's what we're evaluating, who we are evaluating it from. And, so it's a very interesting thing at the evaluation, that reflection and going, hey, hold on, this might just be the time now where I've got to widen that circle, like you say, maybe I've got to chip away more at that crust. I love that. I love it. It's been locked in here, locked and loaded, Eddie. And so but it's vital. And look, that can be from a significant other. That can be from a bunch of guys that hang out or people that hang out. It might be different circles. But I'm always thinking, think about it for myself. What is it that you want to do? And so, but it's nice when you can start to see those wins and that progress and things like that. And you got to break through in a unique way of speaking, encouraging. There's a part of coaching. We learned this interesting thing, fascinating thing. It's called the formula for change. Could you believe that there's actually a formula for change, right? And what it is that everything we do is about building rapport. So we're busy building rapport. Massive in brackets, you got this thing called V, right? There has to be a capital V, which is called vision. And then there's a big multiplier sign, right? And then you got something, right? And it's called D, right? And dissatisfaction. So bit of rapport in brackets, vision times dissatisfaction, right? And then what's interesting is you got this plus first steps, and that big is greater to sign a big R, resistance. So I don't know about you, Anthony, but what I found is that there's always some level of resistance. Whether we meet people or an opportunity, there's always a resistance, right? And that resistance can be from experience or whatever we're going through, or whatever. So how do we overcome that? Well, sometimes we've got to take little first steps. We've got to little first steps. That might mean, you might have to go to the bank, find out a bit of finance, test drive it, trial it, all those kind of things, little first steps. And so in the coaching space, what I tend to do is I do little bits of trials, but also sometimes I've got to go and really highlight the dissatisfaction. Like, there's oil running out of this thing, right? And I like you got your vision board and stuff like that. And that's the big V, the vision and stuff like that. So it's a combination of putting that all in a sequential thing and then realizing that that's what we're utilizing. So for me, it's a big thing to see change come. Sometimes you got to have the vision. You got to understand the dissatisfaction. You got to trial some things. And once I start noticing that big R becomes smaller and smaller and smaller, the resistance. And change is something then that becomes a joy, and yet difficult.
I've got another one for you. It's called the adult growth model.
Okay, tell me about that.
So when you're growing, when you're a baby, you're reliant on your parents. And that's a functional reliance. But when you're as an adult, if you're relying on people, then that's a dysfunctional, right? Then there's the rebellion. So when you're in your teenage years, your brain's reforming, you're rebelling. That's functional because you can't control it.
Okay.
As an adult, if you start rebelling, that's dysfunctional. Then you get to the result stage and you go, okay, well, I'm getting these results. And you look at it in a constructive way and go, okay, I'm getting these results. The next step is realization. So you see the results and you come to the realization that things need to change.
Yeah.
But if you do that as an adult where you see the results but you don't change, that's dysfunctional.
That's clear. Like like when you said that, it's crystal clear.
So the question is, if you're an adult, are you reliant? Are you rebelling? Are you getting results? Are they good results, or are you getting results that you don't want? And if that's the case, are you actually aware? Are you in realization of those results that you need to make some changes in your life or in your business?
As you're speaking about that, it draws close. I'm involved in, in some other community things with men, and it's quite interesting in the world of what's an adult or what's an adult with the teenage space. I hear what you're saying because you can, pre-teen or conversation or situation, or is this teenage, or is this what does adult actually mean in that context? So it's quite interesting when you're bringing that up. It's that really hits me.
Is your mindset of a teen or a preteen, or on the function, or is your mindset from a rebellion and so really got to look at yourself and say there are things coming up here, and you talk about resistance, right? Am I resisting because it's a functional thing, or am I resisting because it's a dysfunctional?
Again, a fork in the road there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like most things is a fork in the road.
Every time, there's always
fascinating.
And sometimes there's a third road.
Do not pause begin. Classic.
How do you personally stay grounded in running businesses or your business and supporting others?
That's a good question. Sometimes it's not easy being grounded. Hey, I have to be frank, because when you're supporting and you're seeing the impact that, because not everything goes, there's no plain sailing, there's nothing straightforward in life, right? It's
not linear.
It's not linear. I have to sometimes, and I've got some key people around me that I spend time and speak to, because I need that too. That's been probably a really important, because life's a relay, and I think, there's that supporting, then there's peers, and then there's people that I reach out to that are older, that have either done business, investing, faith, family, and through the phases. So it's drawing on that kind of stuff. My grounding comes from me being connected with others. I'm someone that needs to take time out in the morning to clear my mind, to read scripture, to know where my breath comes from, and so I can reset. I've got this reset button. I can do that, and so with fitness and things like that. But I do have key people that I can call upon, and I think that keeps me mostly grounded. My grounding comes through because I'm so people connected. That's probably true from that point of view. And so just to be able to bounce and connect and go, okay, great, I'm okay. So that's actually that's very important from my point of view, because day to day, the volume of things that come, to me, and so that I can respond effectively, I must be able to and I am able to literally clear my mind. It's a trained behavior. I had to do that very early on in coach training, was like, how do you not go with whatever that happened in that meeting, however uncomfortable, because you had to have hard conversations about things that really mattered, and then move into something else, move from one frame into the next frame. So, and so I've had to learn that behavior, but also for myself. Yeah, so it's, I also have space in between so that I can make sure, that I'm just not falling over the feet, so I can be present and valued to everyone else. But for me, it's reaching out.
Yeah.
It's reaching out. I choose not to go down a rabbit hole, or I choose not to go into the cave, typical bloke stuff, and so I understand all of those kind of elements about myself, but also understand about human nature. So
yeah. You talked about you got lots of stuff coming at you, like the human brain gets millions of bits of information coming at it at any given time.
Yeah.
And it can only handle 40 bits of information.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what your brain starts doing is it starts deleting, distorting, and generalizing.
Right.
If you've ever been in an argument and you try to recall that argument after the argument's finished, you probably find pieces of it, but never a proper
whole
thing. It's because your brain's going, well, I can't remember all this, so I'm just going to delete it, distort it, and generalize it.
Nice. It's very succinct in a way.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting as you were talking, and I was listening, really taking in what those elements are. Another unique thought popped into my mind just about grounding was, I find I am someone that operates best on the front foot.
Yeah.
Like, hands down, I know that about myself. I know that. All right. So I never have a messy inbox. It's just not in my nature. If I say I'm going to complete something, I complete it, I follow up and follow through. It's just, I found those things really helps me be grounded and sure-footed. So when things come, in that, I'm able to deal with it better. It's actually something that has become, look, you can't sort everything out all the time, right? So I don't come with a super cape, right?
No. Well, sometimes we think we're superheroes.
That ain't the case. I call a spade a spade. I know when I drop the ball. I figured out a bunch of things around humility. As I've figured out, to be able to be vulnerable is probably one of my strengths. I understand that. So in life, I would say there would be probably, one or two people have taken advantage of that vulnerability, but I know that it's not on me. So there's I get that about life, and it allows of course, allows others to go, oh, okay, is that what it means to be vulnerable?
Yeah. You're involved in men's mental health and community work. What role does that play in the men's well-being today?
I think showing up and being consistent. Over the years, I've been part of different things. Myself and an ex-school principal, we led for 7 years. We led a thing called Blokes. And what it was, give you some context, is it was a bunch of different, so you have your older men and you have your sort of more established marriages, and and then you have your young married, and then you get teenagers and little kids, and we would go and support the community, so the elderly, the single parents, and those that just couldn't go, and just practical works. In a sense, we would water blast or chop down take out bushes or hang a curtain, and so we do that and stuff. We did that for a bunch of years, and what I found is for men, when they work together, amazing things happen.
Absolutely.
They speak, they laugh, and you can sense from when they've come to that little job, that we were loving on, and the serving element of it, and then just sitting down and breaking bread and having like a cup of tea and stuff like that. I knew that they just left better because there was something they would talk about, So I find not only that it built community, it built unity, but it also built ways for men to communicate and share. And I think that's probably the gold, is then the more someone shares, it means at the end of the day that there's relationships that are being formed. But what's extra cool about it is you've got kids seeing how older gentlemen are training and learning. So you got international. My kids got to learn a whole bunch of skills, from using a pick, oh, Dad, my shoulders are sore. I'm like, well, you're not going to learn that stuff on looking on an iPad. But the point behind that is, and it also shows them what it means to give in a community, and then seeing people give of their time. And all of that stuff, if you put it together, right, it's like a little recipe, and you just see men better. And if a man, I think I might have mentioned once, I always think to myself, the prisons are not filled with women, they're filled with men, right? So if a man goes, wrong, but it's nice when you can work through. And then for many years now, I've been supporting a ministry, another mate of mine, where these guys, they're early released from prison and they got to go through, a 100-day course, and then from there into a government facility. And the consistency of being there, sharing good values, sharing scripture, sharing real situations, and being there and consistently talking about, what it means to be of good character, what it means to keep women safe, what it means to love, what it means to, and so breaking through, the impact that it has, it's been incredible to see these guys step up, like a 70% success rate because of the type of environment that's been created. And I'm only at one small portion or one small element of it, but they come to know me because it's consistent. Here's a guy that shows up. He shows up. He shows up. He shows up. He shows up. And then, a lovely wife, gives me the privilege and the opportunity to do that. And then my boy's going, well, yes, Dad is doing something in the communities, is impacting this lot. Is there. And so it makes them start to. So this is generational stuff. It's legacy stuff. And so, but I do it because, for me, seeing men stronger, seeing men take on the challenge, of breaking through and breaking apart and breaking through and becoming better, getting involved and utilizing their gifts, talents, and capabilities, their God-given beautiful gifts and talents, learning to share love. The little bit of funds they get, they put it now into other things. It's like even the little that they have, they're putting. I'm so stoked, and then you encourage that, because that might not have been the experience growing up.
That's awesome. Yeah, yeah. So important. So important. Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for asking.
What do you think connection and purpose are, why they're so needed right now?
Another two beautiful things, connection and purpose. I know we have so many challenges as far as, technology and all sorts of things, that it's easy to be isolated and lonely and, so for me, I think about the one major connection for me is, is the God connection. and that it's not rusty. So when that connection is strong, my connection is strong. And that's what I think it comes back down to, true identity. And because once that is the case, because the true identity then becomes love, grace, mercy, joy, all of those kind of things. Connection becomes much easier because people feel it, they see it. So when there's hurt or like abandonment or disappointment, all that kind of stuff, disconnection is easy. It's just there. Making the connection happen has to start with where the breath comes from. So from that point of view, purpose is interesting. I think most people have been told a million times through their significant other, friends. People see purpose all the time in other people. I don't know, but it's just crazy. You can also tell quickly when someone's disconnected. Of course, you don't have to be a rocket scientist, but I think most people have an inkling or something around their purpose, but hasn't been drummed in. It hasn't been reinforced.
Yeah.
It hasn't been spoken into their lives. It hasn't been, and so I find that there's and that's the harsh thing. And then you move back and go and find all sorts of things to fill the gap of loss, hurt, and so for me today, in today's world, I don't have all the answers about how to make those connections, but I know showing up and living by example, and talking and speaking through things and getting people to actually connect with others can happen. Not everybody's got a connection capability to connect. It's not how we're all wired. But I do believe that people want to be in their true self. They want to be, and believe me, I think everybody would love to know and understand their purpose.
Yeah.
There's no, I don't have a different mindset about that.
Well, one of the fundamental things of a human being is they need community and connection. But yeah, being connected to source, to God, universe, is really important. Yeah. Okay, we're at the stage now. I've got 6 quickfire questions. So you can choose to answer this in a single word or a short sentence. First one is, how do you define success, and has that definition changed for you over time?
Yes, it has.
Has it?
It has. Success would have been, what's in the bank account. Success to me now is the most core people around you and how they feel about you and what they say about you. For me, if someone says, I love him, this is who he is, this is who you are to me. When those words come out about someone, this is who you are to me, that has much greater impact. And I find that to be a true sense of success.
Yeah. I heard Earl Nightingale say, success is when you're moving forward. As long as you're moving forward,
wow,
that is success.
I can get that, yes.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Thanks.
Yeah. Who's been your greatest inspiration? Why?
Well, in the faith, of course, there's, being Christ follower, that's the character that I work constantly and work out the human element. I have someone, there's a gentleman in my life, he's what he's built around him, and he's right down to the relationship that he has with his grandkids and the way that they respect him and the way the communication occurs and all of that stuff. And just that structure, for me, it says that there's a phenomenal foundation that's been put in place. And so I value that. And I go, wow, that is someone, that I can respect, and I can see, that there's just because of how all of that works. And I go, so he'll be 82 this year, and I still have lots of quality time with him. Like I said, I've got people that have lived and have done a lot of good things well, and the impact on the relationships they have, it stands the test of time. And so for me, that's You know, it's a big part of growing up in a certain way, going, wow, how important it is now. You know, you only know how much you care until you know how much cares, right? So those things, yeah. So I would say those are the two.
Yeah. What's something that you believe that others may disagree with?
You mean the world's round?
Some people think it's flat.
Flat, yeah. I would say that would be just a funny,
that's right.
just a little quirky thing to say.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, I'll just throw that out there for fun.
Yeah. If you could go back and give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be?
Wow, it is I know specifically. There was a couple of taps on the shoulder where my wife said, "No, we're not doing that," and I did that. So you know, taking the taps on the wife from my beautiful wife, that was probably there was a few times I would say, I would go back and go, "Yes, honey."
Listen to your wife.
Listen to the taps on the shoulders. Like I said, I'm open about these things. There would be a couple of things, and she wouldn't even say anything about you. Just keep quiet. That I love about you. You never make it right or wrong. You know, that's a beautiful. But there's a few things I would have just literally gone my younger self in my relationship with my wife. And you know, since '99 we married. So yeah, I would say there's a few key things.
Nice. Yeah. What is one message that you'd like to share with the world?
It's something that Craig Rochelle, that I believe is really important. I found that the one thing that of all the information and learning that over the years with my buddy Andy, he said, people follow people that are real. I can't, and I don't mean to use this word, I'm not a fan of the word, but I can't stress it enough to be real and be genuine and, you know, and like just be yourself. People want to hang out more with someone that are real and, you know, bleed, you know, and all that sorts. But yeah, just be real, you know. The facade only going to last so long, but being real matters every time. People love people that are real.
That are real, absolutely, yeah. Last question is, and this is double-barreled, like, what does it mean to you to be a champion and to have a champion mindset?
So what does it mean for me to be a champion? The response to that would be being a champion. I'm going through this motorsport thing at the moment, and like the progress, having a winning element, something to strive towards. For me, that's where being a champion is that process of the adjustments, the tweaks and things. For me, that's where champion. And I think about people like, you know, whether it's Muhammad Ali to, you know, just the hours and the effort and the commitment. So a champion is about being committed to something, being committed and true to something that matters. So for me, that's a champion. It's a champion, you know, and so it's the commitment and the follow through and the dedication tells me that that person has a champion mindset and can be a champion. Staying the course can
that winning mindset, right?
Yeah. Not that, and I'm cautious because we all have that kind of stuff. Winning at all costs can have a detriment, but winning in a way, because it's quite interesting. Like I understand a lot of win-win and win-lose and lose-win and stuff like that, but it's quite interesting what that means when you have a winning mindset and you're bringing a bunch of people with you, something that you shared, you know, about, you know, having one day a facility, you know, that people can come and just heal. For me, that's a champion mindset. That's a winning. You're doing something that's going to shift and add value to so many people. And so for me alone, in my mind, I go, that is that to a degree. And so I value that more than anything.
Absolutely.
Because it takes courage, it takes dedication, it takes tenacity, resilience. I mean, I could just spell out all the words to push through the proverbial of, whether it's poppy syndrome, whatever. But I would say commitment is one of my core values. So being committed, when people are committed, they have a champion mindset, seeing things through.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Awesome.
People have been listening to this podcast and they want to get in touch with you. How can they do so?
Just Rise Advisory. It's the website is probably the easiest way. I would say that's the easiest.
We'll put the
way.
link in the show notes.
Yeah, I just, and I'm someone that enjoys, like everybody has a coffee, but I'm genuinely interested in people from what their personal objectives and their business objectives, and understanding that this needs to feed that. It's crystal clear. It's not like, and because I'm fortunate enough to use a lot of good frameworks and a lot of use proven methodologies and stuff, because over the years, it's 20 odd years now of being in this game, you build a solid tool set and good strategies that works. And so just understanding that it could just be a whole bunch of cool things, low-hanging fruit even, that can make a difference for folks today. It's really, really cool. And just having a different perspective. So no, I'm just love the opportunity.
That's awesome. We'll put the link in the show notes. And if you've been watching this episode and you've been inspired and you'd like to get in touch with Jerome, on a professional or personal level,
either way,
or both, then I encourage you to get in touch. Yeah. And thank you, Jerome, for coming and sharing your story, and really from your heart, and being really honest about it. If you're a business owner that is ready to unlock your growth and impact and also have personal freedom, then take a leaf from Jerome's book. And success starts with the mindset. Now, the thing is, progress over perfection, and also start before you're ready. You don't have to get everything ready before you start. You can start and everything else will flow. Right? We talked about flow before.
Yep.
It's
100%. Test and measure.
Exactly. Just start and then doors will open. And so, lastly, I just want to say, you are loved, you are worthy, champion your life, champion your greatness, and have an amazing day.
Yeah. Amen. I would say amen to that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And get the book.
Yep.
There you go.
Pick it up on Amazon or anywhere.
Yeah. Business Mechanics book on Amazon or wherever you find your books.
Yeah. Cool.
Thank you, Jerome.
Thank you so much. It's been a significant pleasure to be here, and I appreciate every minute of it.